Do you have the gift of gab and like talking about interesting topics? Are you often called opinionated by your friends and family? Then come to Anchor where you can be all of the above and get paid for it. Along with being one of the easiest systems to create contact with, Anchor supplies everything you need and can be used from your smartphone or computer. They even distribute your content for you so that you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Just download the Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Okay, hello, media family. Hello, social media family. This is Anjanette Potter, also known as Adam's Rib, and you're listening to 31 Days of Global Feminism. I already did the podcast on the Coombahi River Collective, and so now I want to go. I did the. I just got done eating some fruit, so you had to. Excuse me. I did the podcast on one of the founders. So today I'm going to be doing 2 podcasts, and they're going to be on the other 2 women that are responsible for the founding of it. So today I'm going to talk about Beverly Smith, who is the sister of Barbara Smith, the other person who was responsible for the writing of the collective. So Beverly Smith, born November 16, 1946, in Cleveland, Ohio, is a black feminist, health advocate, writer, academic, theorist, and activist who is the twin sister of writer, publisher, activist, and academic Barbara Smith. Beverly Smith is an instructor of women's health at the University of Massachusetts in Boston. She is one of the 3 authors of the famous Coombahi River Collective statement, one of the most widely read discussions of black feminism, which was developed by members of the radical lesbian black feminist Coombahi River Collective in 1977. Her essays and articles on racism, feminism, identity politics, and women's health have been extensively shared, in the United States. So we already discussed that Miss Smith was born in Cleveland, Ohio, in 1946, and like her sister, she was born to Hilda Bill Smith, and her father, Gartrell, was not present during their childhood. Both twins were premature, and Miss Smith suffered from pneumonia. Miss Smith lived in a 2-bedroom house with her sister, mother, grandmother, and great aunt. At the age of 6, the twins and their family moved into a 2-bedroom, 2-family house with her aunt and her aunt's husband. Miss Smith was raised in a full home that included her mother, grandmother, aunt, and periodically her aunt's husband. Growing up, her mother worked as a supermarket clerk, and Miss Smith, as a supermarket clerk, and the grandmother became the twins' primary caretaker. October 16th. On October 16th, her mother passed away after being hospitalized for several months as a result of heart complications that originated from childhood rheumatic fever. Education was highly valued by the women in her family. So Miss Smith had, and because of this, their mother had a bachelor's of science in education from Fort Valley State University, while Hilda Beale Smith was the only family member to receive a university education. Smith's other family members worked as teachers. Now, Miss Smith's level of education, she attended Bolton Elementary School before transferring to Robert Fulton Elementary School, Alexander Hamilton Junior High, and John Adams High School. Ms. Smith graduated from high school in January of 1965. Following her graduation, she enrolled at University of Chicago later that year. She received her undergrad degree from the University of Chicago and went on to receive a Master's of Public Health from Yale University and a Master's of Human Development and Psychology from Harvard Graduate School of Education. The death of Smith's mother was the motivator for her to pursue public health in university and with a focus on Black women's health. So in her early activism, like her sister, she became politically active when she was in high school and was involved in CORE, Congress of Racial Equality. At the time of her involvement with CORE, de facto segregation was a big issue with the school systems, and her early activism involved picketing the school board and school boycotts. On the day of one of the boycotts, Smith and her sister attended one at a church nearby and read the Riot Act. After graduating high school, Ms. Smith became more involved in CORE with her sister, and the two of them participated in canvassing. In April 1964, Smith was part of a protest in honor of civil rights and activist Bruce Clunder in Cleveland, Ohio. After his untimely death, Miss Smith met Fannie Lou Hamer, who I'm going to discuss later on this month, at a party after a rally in Cleveland. Miss Smith was also involved in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. While attending the University of Chicago, Ms. Smith formed a support group with other Black students where they would talk about racism on campus. In her second year, she fell out of activism because of the popularity of Black nationalism and Black separatism. And I think I'm going to go ahead and make Black separatism a topic that I discuss this month as well. So I'm going ahead and saving this up now. As I said, I'm not quitting this. Adams Rib Media Ministry lives on. Okay. So Black separatism, to give you sort of a small summation, is a separatist political movement that seeks separate economic and cultural developments for those of African descent in societies, particularly in the United States. Black separatism stems from the idea of racial solidarity, and it also implies that Black people should organize themselves on the basis of their common experience of oppression as a result of their race, culture, and African heritage. There were a total of 255 Black separatist groups recorded in the United States as of 2019. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna talk about that. That's just been added to one of my topics that I'm gonna discuss. And you may wonder how that relates to feminism, and it does. What a lot of people don't understand what a lot of people don't understand, that at the time that the civil rights movement was going on, I would say the second wave of feminism was also going on. So we have a few people, and I said this before when I talked about Angela Davis and different other people that were, different other women that were pioneers of the civil rights movement, that many of them also had a place in feminism. I'm also going to talk about the Black Panther Party's place in feminism as well, because there is one. So in her third year, a friend of Barbara's transferred to the University of Chicago and invited Smith to a women's liberation meeting where she became involved in political movements all over again. While at university, Beverly Smith attended the speeches of Stokely Carmichael and Martin Luther King Jr. So in her writings, Ms. Smith notes that religion and education were twin pillars in her home as she grew up. She was raised in the Baptist Church and attended Antioch Baptist Church, one of the oldest African American churches in Cleveland. Ms. Smith is a member of the First Parish of Watertown, a Unitarian Universalist church since 2014. So Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religion characterized by free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Unitarians, Universalists, assert no creed, but instead are unified by their shared search for spiritual growth. One of the other times around here, I'll probably talk about them. They are an embrace all type of religion. They're really kind of different, depending on how you define different. But they are. I have looked into them in the past for different writings that I've had for like theology school, when I was getting my diploma in theology, but also when I was getting my certificate in ministry. So, like I said, they're kind of all embracing, which is kind of, like I said, if you've been raised as a born again Christian, then you can't eat at everybody's table. I mean, that's just, how that is. So in 1973, Miss Smith moved to New York City and became a writer for Miss Magazine. So Miss Magazine is an American liberal feminist magazine that was co-founded in 1971 by journalist and social political activist Gloria Steinem. So this is Gloria Steinem's baby. It was the first national American feminist magazine, and the original editors were Letty Cotton Pogrebin, Mary Thorne, Patricia Carbine, Joanne Egger, Nina Finkelstein, Mary Peacock, Margaret Sloan Hunter, and Miss Steinem. Beginning as a one-off insert in New York Magazine in 1971, the first standalone issue of Miss, which is MS period, appeared in January 1972 with funding from New York Magazine's editor Clay Felker. From July 1972 until 1987, it appeared on a monthly basis. Now it publishes quarterly, which is what a lot of magazines are doing anymore. So she became a writer for Miss Magazine through networking at the National Black Feminist Organization. So this is another one that's going to go under my topics for this month. So the National Black Feminist Organization was founded in 1973, and I'm going to talk about that on another podcast. So through networking at this particular conference in 1973, Ms. Smith met a woman who helped her land a job at the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation doing research. During her master's program, Ms. Smith worked various placements in health centers in Boston. After receiving her master's in public health from Yale University in 1976, Ms. Smith worked at Boston City Hospital in women's health, focusing on contraceptive counseling. Ms. Smith has worked at Floating Hospital for Children. So that was her career. So we're now going to go into her activism. So while living in New York City, Beverly Smith became involved with organizations such as National Organization for Women, known as now National Black Feminist Organization. She began attending NOW meetings in 1973, but soon stopped going as their focus seemed to only be on white middle class and upper class struggles. It was at the NBFO conference where Smith was able to relate to other black women's experience and called the conference revelatory. Ms. Smith credits her early work in women's health as influential to her feminist work. When working as a contraceptive counselor at Boston City Hospital, Beverly Smith was exposed to the state of women's health care, and she then maintained a working relationship with a feminist health center in the area. Ms. Smith attended conferences based on Black and Third World women's health. She also worked with the Boston Committee on Ending Sterilization Abuse. Yeah, sterilization was still a thing for a lot of black women even at this time. Beverly Smith was heavily involved in black women's health advocation, emphasizing the effect of racism and sexism on the black women's bodies. And people don't realize one thing. One thing that I see, I'm currently looking at before I started doing this podcast. So the channel Modern Girls on YouTube is doing it. Posted a video talking about the entertainment media's history of mistreating young women. So one of the things that I continue to hear when I hear about, when I hear about the pressure between media, between agents, between record labels and movie studios and the public at large, there seems to be a lot of abuse or pressure on young women. And not only is there pressure, add to that pressure the potential for sexual abuse, sexual harassment, possible sexual assault, and you have a nice big cocktail for depression. And it does do a number. I actually studied this in my undergrad for my bachelor's in psychology, and they talked about the correlation between stressful relationships and the likelihood of women developing depression. And depression is a real thing. There are different forms of depression, which is why they now categorize it under major depressive disorder. It used to be called clinical depression. It used to be called clinical depression because it was considered to be a result of the brain chemistry. But they're also, and I say myself, because they still have to take medication for it, that even though it is a issue of your brain's biochemistry, being a what they call a unipolar disorder, it also can be aggravated. Like any mental illness that you have can be, even if it's something that has to do with your brain's biochemistry and synapses and everything, it can be aggravated by stressful situations. So it's not so much that the situation is causing it, but I always use the term conspiring. The two can conspire together to give you some severe lows and make you feel like really, really bad. So it's really not good for you. So on the days that you don't feel up to snuff, it's better for you not to be surrounded by any stressful situations, not be dating any. And we also studied the whole effect of having a man with if you are dating a guy who may have a personality disorder, such as antisocial, that might test high in antisocial personality disorder, that they can cause even more stress. So it's good to figure out who you're spending time around. But not only does it have an effect on your psyche, it can also have an effect on your physical body. I remember watching an old Good Times episode where the father was going through a thing where they diagnosed him with hypertension. They thought he might be hypertension, and they talked about the high rate of hypertension, or what they call high blood pressure, in the black community, and one of the contributing factors is racism. The day-to-day stress of dealing with racism. And like I said before, white or black people at large, if you get a chance, I told you that, for February, the book of the month for Bookworm is Black Like Me. And I finally got a chance to see the Black Like Me movie. I didn't even know there was a movie because I'd only ever heard about the book. So I watched the movie. And the movie kind of, went over some of the specifics of the book. And if you have a chance, I recommend seeing the movie. It is very good. It is very eye-opening. Like if you're a white person who had any doubts about what black people complain about when we complain about racism, this will be a very big eye-opener for you. If you are a black person who is about my age or younger, this will be an eye-opener for the type of thing that many of our people went through in the past. And especially if you talk about, and people never, like, we tend to think of racism and we tend to think of police brutality and different other, not black and white bathrooms, and it went so much deeper than that. People tend to gloss over the sexual treatment that a lot of black women got. And it continues on to this day. We still fight against some of those negative stereotyping. And many times it can come from our own men. Okay, so on the subject of the personal being political, Miss Smith stated in a 1978 interview, "I think one of the major contributions I think one of the major contributions the feminist movement of this part of the feminist movement is of the personal being political. What that boils down to is that any situation in which there is an issue about power and control is by definition a political situation. So you can have a political situation in your own kitchen, in your own bedroom, or in your own gynecologist's office. You don't have to be talking about the houses of Congress or the Supreme Court to be talking about politics. Politics are, in a sense, obscured and taken out of the realm of everyday life, but that's where everyone lives their lives. A quote by Beverly Smith. So Beverly Smith took part in the above interview as a member of the Boston chapter committee to end sterilization abuse. The interview was part of a segment regarding the impact of male physicians on women's health care and political issues surrounding women's health care and sex education. So, okay. So for her part in the Combahee River Collective, and I'm going to talk about the Combahee battle because I think it's a very interesting part of the Harriet Tubman legacy. So the early stages of Combahee Collective began in 1975 while Smith was living in Boston for her work placements at Boston City Hospital with her sister Beverly Smith and Demita Fraser. The collective began as the Boston chapter of the NFBO, but in 1975 became independent as a result of different political agendas. So Beverly Smith, Barbara Smith, so Miss Smith, her sister, and Demita Fraser began writing the statement after they were asked by Barbara's friend Zilla Einstein. As they were asked by Barbara's friend Zilla Einstein. So basically my little pause right now is because as I'm going through this, Wikipedia has a way of allowing you to click on other people's stories, and so Miss Einstein is an American political theorist and gender studies scholar and emerita professor of the Department of Politics at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York. She specializes in political and feminist theory, class, sex, and race politics, and the construction of gender. She's the author of 12 books and an editor of the 1978 collection Capitalist Patriarchy and the Case for Socialist Feminism, which published. So she had a part in publishing the Combahee River Collective statement. And I think I'm going to look on Amazon and see if that's available, if the Combahee statement is available to purchase and have, if it's available to buy. So the three women have been involved enough with various women's movements to understand that these movements were not addressing racism. The intersections of race, class, and gender were critical to the collective when penning the statement. Ms. Smith attributes a portion of the development of black feminism on the statement. The politics of the collective were situated in anti-racism, classism, homophobia, and heteronormativity. Smith and her group saw that black feminism had the logics to combat the oppression of all women of color. The collective was also involved in advocating for abortion rights, combating sterilization abuse, and domestic violence. The CRC emphasized the importance of solidarity amongst Black women for liberation. The legacy, the Combahee River Collective statement has had long-lasting effects on Black feminism and feminism. It coined terms such as interlocking oppression and identity politics. CRC also gave Black and brown women entry points into political involvement. Okay. So, that is, so after this I'm going to talk about Miss Demetra Frazier. That was interesting, very interesting. Any other things that you want to know about, because I'm looking and there are references, there are also selective works. If you want to read more about Miss Smith, both Miss Smiths, or about this topic at all of the information that I am reading from is on Wikipedia, which, to be honest with you, there's an extensive amount. And like I said, it seems like every time I get on one of our notables or on a particular topic that I'm talking about or podcasting about, I seem to find a lot of I wind up going down the rabbit trail. And like I said, with Wikipedia, the nice thing is you have the ability to click. If there's a name that looks notable, you can click and there's their information. And so some of the times I'm kind of positing here is because I'm reading it and I'm clicking on here and going, oh, well, they would be a good person to talk about for this month as well. So I may wind up, the way that I'm going right now, because I've been scheduling my podcast and my content creation. So as I'm doing this, there will be, I'm doing it because I want to get more notables up as I go through this month. So like I said, we not quitting. Adam's Rib Media Ministry lives on. So as I do this, I am going to spend tonight getting it together and trying to get these transferred to YouTube so they can make it to YouTube. So I'm going to go ahead and get off here because I have to talk about the third leg of I have to do a podcast, and I think each of these women are worthy of their own podcast, their own separate podcast. So this is why I chose to do their story like I'm doing it. As I said earlier, the bookworm book of the month for March, because it's Women's History Month, is going to be, it already is, because we're already into March, is Reclaiming Our Space by Feminista Jones. And if you have a memory, you know that Feminista Jones was an honoree for, I believe, last year or the year before, when I was mentioning 28 or 29 days of Black feminism. So I've honored her before. So I'm going to go ahead and get off here because I have another podcast to record, and I will see you in that next podcast. That is the sound of me blowing you a kiss. Seems to be my signature move, and I will talk to you in the next podcast. Hello, you have reached the message line for Adam's Rib Media Ministry. If you would like to give me a shout out, recommend some topics for discussion, or give an opinion about some topics that I've already discussed, either here on my podcast or on my blogs, leave me a message and I will get right back to you. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.